Hello and welcome to another video by me, Ryan the Dorkman, as always. And what are we going to cover today? Today we are looking at this. We are looking at Adventures in Middle-earth, the Player's Guide. I picked this up at the UK Games Expo, which was last weekend at the time of recording, so it was a couple of days ago. So I've had a quick read through, which means that I've skimmed through it once and then I've gone back over certain mechanics that make this different, because if you didn't notice, this works with the D&D 5th edition open license. So a lot of these, a lot of this is very similar, especially if you're a DM that has ran 5th edition in the last couple of years. So it's not a far jump from that to this book. I did also pick up the Lore Master's Guide as well at the same time, but I didn't pick up the Wilderlands setting, which was a part of my mistake. So side note, if you want to run a Middle-earth style adventure using the 5th edition set, I would advise that you pick up the two aforementioned books as well as the last mentioned book, which is the Wilderlands Adventures setting book, I believe they're calling it, which is the only one out by Cubicle 7. Cubicle 7 is a company that do this, as well as the One Ring, which is also another Lord of the Rings setting, but it doesn't use the 5th edition. I've never played the One Ring, so I can't give a comment on what it's like. But however, I definitely played 5th edition, so this is very good for me. So it doesn't mean I need to learn a whole new game, game mechanics. There are a few new ones in here, but they are generally very similar to. They are very much D&D 5th edition. So Cubicle 7 are a company that are currently doing this range at the minute. They do the One Ring, the One Ring books, as well as the Doctor Who role-playing game, as well as they're doing, apparently next year or later this year, they've got the new Warhammer Fantasy role-play books, which originally were the Fantasy Flight games. So they're doing those now, as well as they're doing the Warhammer Age of Sigmar role-playing game as well, which is going to be interesting. I don't know a lot about Age of Sigmar, but it's going to be different, I guess, talking to the guy on the stand. However, we're here to talk about this. So how does this make your D&D feel like Lord of the Rings? Well, this is very similar. So you've got, instead of races, you've got cultures, classes, you've got classes, and backgrounds are backgrounds, and feats are called virtues. So let's go from start to finish. So cultures, what cultures do we have? So to give out a few cultures, I'm not going to read them out here because this video will be a lot longer than what I want it to be. So cultures. We have Bardlings, Bjornlings, we have the Duodane, we have the Dwarves of the Lonely Mountain, and we have Elves and Hobbits, as well as a number of humans. So we have the Men of Bree, the Men of the Lake, the Men of Minas Tirith, whatever, Riders of Rohan, and there was one last one. The Woodmen of the Wildland. So they all have a distinct feeling to them. So as with the D&D Player's Handbook, it guides you through the whole process of this is the general lifespan of this culture. This is the Dex bonus or the Constitution bonus or whatever bonuses you get for picking that culture, as well as any unique proficiencies or mechanics that you get for choosing that culture. And they do have a distinct feeling for each. So it's not like you have 4 different types of human and they're all the same, but the +1 is in a different stat. No, it's not like that. They all have a distinct feeling to them, which is very good on Cubicle 7's part, because humans tend to be boring in D&D. However, in this they do a very good job in making them distinct, which is great. So that was cultures. So classes, you have Scholar, Slayer, Treasure Hunter, Wanderer, Warden, and Warrior. So essentially what you get is you get a couple of fighter classes, you get a ranger class, you get a rogue, you get a bard, and you get a kind of cleric, but it's not really a cleric, it's a healer. So you still do damage, but you don't call from the power of the gods. You use your medicinal knowledge of herbs and pulses and all that sort of loveliness to heal people. So there's no divine healing. It's all to do with, you know, healing stuff that you make and that you can do, which is good. It keeps within the setting of Lord of the Rings. If you notice, I didn't mention a wizard. There are no wizards in the classes because you're not Gandalf, you're not Radagast, and you're not Saruman, so you can't do magic. Magic can be learned, I think, in this, but you touch very lightly on magic. There is a chart in here as well that says out of the D&D spells, these are the ones that are allowed. So you cannot do Finger of Death, you cannot do disintegration, those kind of things. The other ones, looking over them, they're very utility class spells rather than a level 9 fireball, because that's just not Lord of the Rings. There is a background called Wizard, but as you read it, you find out that they're more entertainers, even though they consider themselves wizards. They are good hearty charlatans that are there to entertain. So if you think of Gandalf on his cart riding into the Shire to meet Bilbo, or Frodo, depending on which film that you watch, is that sort of individual, but not Gandalf. You're just some other guy that looks like a wizard that is there to entertain with fireworks and etc., and just amaze people with your magic. But essentially it's just misdirection. So they are the classes. So backgrounds, I gave you one example of a background. There are other backgrounds that are in lieu of that, so let's just give you one. See what I come to first. There is the Harrowed. You're plagued by a persistent dream. It beckons you to complete some task, although you are currently unsure of the particulars or whether fulfilling the dream will lead to good or ill. All that you know is that the dream is strong and intensity increases whenever you neglect its demands of you. It is simply impossible for you to get a good night's sleep otherwise. You know, you get certain, that's the Harrowed. There is the Fallen Scion, the emissary of your people, driven from home, doomed to die. You know, they're all different and they all offer different proficiencies in certain skills. There are a couple of new skills in there as well. God, I can't remember off the top of my head what the skills are now. There's definitely Shadow Law. There is Shadow Law, Traditions, and Riddle, because riddles are part of Lord of the Rings to do with the books and stuff. So, you know, it depends how good you are at riddles, I guess. Which also leans very heavily on the Lore Master / DM / GM / Storyteller / whatever. Very heavily to provide said riddles. So hopefully the Wilderlands campaign setting does have some example riddles, because I suck at riddles. So there are some noticeable differences between 5th edition and this. Mechanical differences as well. So you gain, let's cover virtues. So virtues are very much like feats. Essentially they are feats. So there are quite a lot in here that you can choose from. Some have prerequisites for class, some have prerequisites for level, some prerequisites have cultures. So you can only take them if you're an elf or a dwarf or one of the kinds of human. And some prerequisites are a combination of those. So that give benefits to the class or the culture, and you would only generally feel that benefit if you had that class or culture. So it's very good on their part, and some of the feats are very interesting in a sense of they aren't essentially you gain advantage on your attacks with a warhammer. There's one where you become the bannerman of a specific house or a city, and when you plant the banner, it enables your the rest of the party, including yourself, to use a one-time use of a number of hit dice as you please at that point, which is great. You know, why not? Because you're gaining this, you know, this rush of heroism by seeing your city's standard or whatever, and you gain that rush of adrenaline, so you get that energy back, which is great. So that's just one example of virtue. There are a lot in there to cover, so I buy the book. Yeah, that's what I'm going to suggest. I'm not going to read it out to you. Virtue. So what's next? So the mechanics. So you have the journey phase, you have the adventure phase, and you have the fellowship phase. So how does that pertain to the game? Well, in a sense, it makes it very easy for groups that can't get together very regularly. So if you're in a group, if you have a group of friends, you're very busy because life and work and all other sorts of stuff, excuse me, stops you meeting on a weekly basis. Maybe it's bi-weekly, bi-monthly, bi-yearly, or whatever, and you only like to play together, or whatever your reasons are that you can't get together very regularly. So this book does enable you to have a game that feels rich and rewards you for having one-shots. So you can so journey phase. So you have, if you've watched Lord of the Rings or if you've watched Hobbit, you know that there are parts in the film that they're going from point A to point B because they need to do something at point B, or maybe they're going from point A to point B to get through point B to get to point C to do something. Who knows? They're a structured journey, and it's a bunch of montage of wide-angle landscapes of them running across mountains or hilltops, or going through caves, or fighting off whatever you want to call it, and doing all that sorts of lovely cinematic stuff. So this book enables you to have that cinematic feel to it, and it also gives you mechanics depending on what happens in the journey phase. So it's not just the DM rolls a d20 on a 19 plus or whatever, then you encounter some orcs, and then you have to fight some orcs, and then you have to roll for the next day, and then you encounter a werewolf. You know, it's not like that. There are instances where you do encounter some enemies, and there are also some scenarios where you encounter large enemies, and when I mean like large numbers of enemies, so like a small battalion or a garrison or just a huge army that's marching through for good or ill, and it's what you would do in that instance. So there are other things where you have to divert from the path, and then you have to work your way around it, which is going to affect your time scale, which is going to make you more tired. So at the end of the journey phase, depending on what happens on rolls and mechanics, and you're rolling on one chart and on another chart, and then that has a progression end for the end of the journey phase, determines on what you gain or what you lose at the end of that journey. Because if you've been running at full pelt across the areas around Rohan that are typically rode around on horses, and you're doing it on foot, and you're doing it at full pace, you're doing it at marching speed, you're going to be tired as hell when you get to the other side, get to where you want to be. So you're going to be exhausted, or you're going to have a mechanical problem, you're going to be at a disadvantage on rolls, maybe. Whatever it may be, it covers that in the book. And then you go to your adventure phase. Your adventure phase is just like any RPG in any role-playing game, especially Dungeons and Dragons and this book as well. So that is your meat and potatoes. So that is your, let's say, you're going to a ruined castle that has been taken over by goblins. You know, so you're trying to clear it out because you need that castle to be remade and to be a bigger foothold because of reason X. Yeah, so that's your one shot for this session. So that is your adventure phase. So that's what your adventurers do during that phase, and then obviously what happens. At the end of that adventure phase, maybe you're all alive. Let's do that. Let's say that everyone's fine. They've saved the day. They've cleaned out the ruins. It is now primed, ready for X army to come in, secure it, and then start rebuilding, and then, you know, make it something, renew it to its former glory. I can't even get my English out today, which is great for making videos. So you've done that. You've done your adventure phase. Blah 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 blah. You've got some loot. You've got some experience. Fellowship phase. So the fellowship phase is essentially what your characters do after they've had this life-changing experience, because it's not like D&D where you go from battle to battle, from place to place, and it's just this never-ending life of hardship that just keeps going and going and going. So this allows you to have a point where you go, it says in here as a general rule, anywhere in the Wilderlands, because that's their first setting book that they're coming out with, as a rule of thumb that it would take roughly 3 months for somebody to get back home from anywhere in the on the map. So there's the map. So if you end up anywhere on here, depending on wherever you live, whether it's Riverdale or whether it's the Shire or wherever else, it would take you on average around about 3 months to get back. And then you would spend a number of months or a number of seasons, months or seasons where you would do things that are away from the party if your party is not the same culture as you, or whether you want to experience a different culture. But there are limitations depending on, you know, where you go or what you do, and it also reflects on the people that are available to see you at that given point. So this setting is 5 years after The Hobbit. So that's 40 years before the first Lord of the Rings film. So there is Gandalf in the world, there is Bilbo in the world, there is Aragorn somewhere in the north. I think that's where he is at this point. There is Elrond, and then all the other elves I'm not going to try and pronounce because I'll butcher, because I do butcher them when I'm not on camera, so I'm not going to do that for you guys, but I do butcher them. So they're all are there, as well as the Wood Elves and Legolas, etc, etc. So I got those ones out correct, I believe. So they're all there for you to go and talk to, and maybe they become your patron. There are a number of things that you can do in your fellowship phase. You can gain, you can train. That is generally where you do your leveling up if you are at a point to level up. You do that in your fellowship phase because thematically it makes sense. You can also train to maybe get more proficient in a certain weapon that you want to use. Maybe you're an artisan, you craft, so you want to craft better armor, etc, etc. You've got better material, you want to do that. So it's got all these wider these open-ended things which are covered in the book. It's not something that's new, because it is in the Dungeon Master's Guide that to do things that are out of games, that's downtime. So this has took that downtime mechanic or section and has made it a part of it, because it is a part of the Lord of the Rings. So, you know, they do have downtimes in the film, so it does give you a point where you could have a very cinematic roleplay experience. So if you do 3 or 4 hours where you're role playing, you could do that at the end and go, this is where they stay for a number of seasons or months, and then when you meet again in your lore master says, we're going to be in X year, so it's or X season, this has been so long, and then you can do your downtime then, or whatever you set before. You can do it, it resolves, and then you jump straight back into the journey phase where you meet again for whatever reason, or you're reunited with your fellow comrades that you cleaned out that castle of goblins, and maybe now that the army needs you in defense, or whatever it may be, or maybe some other story. Let's see what happens in the Wilderlands setting. So they're the unique settings for those, unique sections for those. And what else does this book offer? This also offers rules for audiences and rules for corruption. So audiences is where you are going to a specific town or city or settlement, and you're asking for an audience with the ruler or whatever of that particular place. Some cultures just don't want to talk to you, depending on who you are. So dwarves are very skittish with who they talk to, etc. There is a big chart in there that says this is how they perceive them, and then it gives you a little context of, you know, what that entails or how to enact it. When you talk to that specific person, there is some roles to determine on the likelihood of adhering to your request. So if you ask for some aid from the wood elves, maybe they're not so inclined because of X reasons, or maybe they are. Maybe they see you as fellow kin because you are an elf, but they give you maybe not completely trustful, but they're somewhere in between. Whereas being completely distrustful, it says, no, I'm not going to do anything that you want me to do because I don't like you, essentially. So there's that. There's also corruption. So if you think of like Boromir in the first Lord of the Rings, he dies. There is a, you know, he gains a bunch of corruption where he wants to take the ring from Frodo. It's got nothing to do with him dying, but for some reason I mentioned that. So he wants to take them. Random thought there. He wants to take the ring from Bilbo because being around the ring has corrupted him along the way. So this also has mechanics of minor corruption and how that revolves around your character for spending so much time around orcs or Horakai or giant spiders, etc. It's nothing too far-fetched away from madness within 5th edition, but it's different and it has a very nice sort of Lord of the Rings sort of feel to it. So it's not just that you become a completely raged psycho and just got to go on a killing spree because you've looked at Demogorgon or whatever it may be. This gives you a little bit of a nuance. You can recover from that, and that's another thing that you can do in your fellowship phases. You can recover from corruption because you're spending time away from it, which is great. There are a few maps in here that you can look at, really. There's a large, I don't think it's in here, I think it's in the other one, in the other book. There is a lot, obviously there is a large map of the Wildlands. If you wanted to just, instead of getting the book, just go, hey, I'm going to run an adventure in the Wildlands because I can, and yay. So that's the only map that's in there. In this book, in the Lore Master's Guide, there is a very large map of Lake Town, and it covers each section and a lot of the places in there, as well as the notable places in there. There are some arms and armory in here that are very specific to the Middle-earth setting, and it is pretty nice. A lot of them, I could foresee them being giving inspiration to people to put things like that in their normal D&D games, rather than going, here's a sword that has no cultural bearing on anything unless it's dwarven. And even then, maybe it just gives you +2 necrotic damage. A lot of, all of the magical items in here don't offer game-breaking amount of damage or game-breaking utility. itch. But they do offer flavour. And they offer slightly different things, different things to what you find in the Dungeon Master's Guide. So some items only give you bonuses to damage. So it gives you might give you a +1 to damage, but no +1 to rolls. Or maybe it gives you an extra die on a crit or something like that. But there is a flavor text which is really nice if you like to make cards, like treasure item cards, and hand them out. You could put that flavor on one side and then maybe put the game mechanics on the other, just to add some flavor. Got an itch today. I'm not going to cut this out. Stop looking myself on the screen, Ryan. You're distracting everybody. So yeah. So final thoughts on the book. Great book. Definitely want to play this at some point. With I don't know, maybe the online group. Maybe we'll run a session and do it, because I don't think I've seen a lot of Adventures in Middle-earth streams. Maybe we'll do that at some point. Anyway, I digress. So, yes, it's a very good book. It cost me £27 from the Cubicle 7 stall at the Games Expo at the weekend, but you can get it for, I believe it's the same price on their website. If you get it off their website, they will send you the PDF straight away. So you'll get it on PDF immediately. So you can start reading and start going through it, and they'll email you, and they will post you the book out. I'm not sure their price for postage, but it's going to be a couple of quid. So you're going to be spending around about £30 for the book. And they'll send it out. So you'll get a PDF and the normal hardback copy, because it is hardback, straight away. So you can get their books on there. Maybe you can find it at your local gaming store. I'm not sure if it has it at my local gaming store, but I'm sure if they're watching this, maybe they should get it, because it is a good book. Also, if you're interested in the Wildlands adventures, you can pre-order the hard copy, and they will email you out the PDF this month at some point. So I think the hardback copy is not due out for a couple of months at the time of the recording from now, but you'll get the PDF and then you get the hardback copy when it comes out, which is great. So it's something I might actually do. So yeah, so go and check that out. I'll put a link down below in the blah blah, and you can go and check that out. So what am I going to cover next? Well, next obviously I'm going to do this bad boy, because this is the Lawmaster's Guide. Look at that artwork, it's pretty sweet. So the artwork, which I haven't showed you a lot of in the book, is pretty sweet. But I'm going to cover that next. And that's a lot smaller than the player's book as well. I suggest if you're a DM, get both. Don't rely on your group to get it, because reasons. So yeah, YouTube stuff. So YouTube stuff down below. There is a link to follow somewhere around here. I'm arbitrarily just pointing over my corner, because there should be a thing down there to go and click subscribe, share, like, give me a comment, tell me what you want to see. I'm open to answering questions on the book, anything that I haven't covered that you might want to know, and then get chatting. If you go check down below as well, you'll see the Wasted Criticals Facebook group, fan page, in fact just page. Go and check us out. Also, there are probably links down below to the playlist for the Wasted Critical show. We've just done episode 11, and it's going well. It's going pretty good. Check it out. So yeah, so this is me, Ryan the Dorkman, dribbling on as always at the end of the video, as I normally do. I will see you next time. Take care of yourselves, look after each other, and just be good. Play more games, yeah? Peace.